Good morning. Good evening, everybody. This is Bob Weathers in Southern California with my partner, Jason Renno. We represent the Vitality Project. We're here with our dear friend all summer long, Caira from Lockdown Open Up, and we've banded together to create Vitality Project Unlocked. Caira's dear friend, Taryn, who's been a huge supporter of all that we've been doing this summer, is here. It's wonderful to have you, Taryn. And we have back, yeah, it's great to have you. And we have back our esteemed guest, wow, debonair beyond words, Guy du Plessis. It's wonderful to have Guy, and Taryn all here from South Africa. So South Africa meets Southern California, and here we go. Our topic for today, yeah, thank you. It's great to have you. Our topic here is where do we go next? And the subtitle is Vitality Project Unlocked and Beyond. In terms of, we're going to be winding down one aspect of our involvement. It's good news. Caira has, South Africa has changed in such a way that Caira can finally get back to the work that she is skilled in doing and needs to do to survive, and we want you to live. So Caira's going back to work. And we've been already, Jason and I and Caira have been meeting, and Taryn, you're a part of this conversation. Guy has explicitly been a part of this conversation. We're looking at seeing what we can do to collaborate moving forward. Even with Caira going back to work in another industry, we want to support you in that, and you want to support us in kind of continuing the good work we've done. So just kind of want to open up. I'm wide open for any thoughts, any ideas. We can summarize where we've been. We can figure where we want to go. But I'm anticipating what comes next with Vitality Project Unlocked. Anybody? Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Jason. Sorry.
I forgot I muted my mic. I'll go briefly and let the rest of the group talk. But I think it's very cool that we've been able to connect around the globe. And what started out as Dr. Bob and I saying, hey, we're going to post a video once a day on basically a Facebook business page has turned into, I think we just cracked 2,000 followers. We average well over 2 hours a day worth of view time on our YouTube channel. So it is, the five of us are sitting here in 5 different locations across the globe. We're connecting with people in Australia. And I think when, the topic here is where does this go online? And I think this is where it goes. I think it goes to the point where it doesn't matter where you're at in the world, you don't have to be subject to just any meeting or any type of recovery, that you can really go find the best of the best is really, I think, where we're going with this. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Bob, but, rather than just jump into a meeting or listen to a video of, I guess, somebody that doesn't actually walk the walk or can talk the talk as well, bringing the best of the best around the world to lead groups, to develop a curriculum, to really give that knowledge to the world that I think it needs right now. That that's unique. I mean, this whole COVID crisis is obviously a horrible thing, but I think it's really opened up people's eyes, people like us, with the ability of what we can do, and to give us the ability to think outside the box and create new and innovative ways to deliver this to people. So I'm excited to see, I'm extremely excited to see where it goes.
You remind me, Jason, of one of my favorite musicians when I was growing up was the American rock star Frank Zappa. His band was called the Mothers of Invention. I'm going for it. And that was cited from the phrase, necessity is the mother of invention. And COVID is the mother of invention. And we've had some very resilient responses citing Guy's work to COVID amidst huge limitation, hardship, and tragedy. It's amazing to me that something of worth is rising out of the ashes of this. And this is one example of it for sure. Here we are, of necessity, meeting with each other, the 5 of us, which is amazing. Eric Rogers writes in, COVID is a blessing in disguise. Amen to that. Eric is a partner in all of this too. It's great to see you, Eric.
He's been a big help.
Yeah.
What about you guys, Caira, Taryn, Guy? What are your thoughts on this? So where's the next kind of evolution of where things are going in terms of recovery post-COVID, online technology?
I think Caira and I actually had a good chat about this the other day.
Yeah, the sort of the journey for us since the start of lockdown. I mean, you guys sort of know fairly the rough idea of the whole story, but Taryn and I wanted to create a safe social space where we could speak vulnerably without sort of fear of being judged about mental health and addiction and recovery. And that goes beyond the sort of stigmas associated with it. So when we say addiction, we don't necessarily mean, you know, as addicts, but also family members of addicts and loved ones of addicts, and then mental health and, you know, the support systems around that, how to navigate conversations around it and the languages that we're using to speak about it. And we very quickly noticed, obviously, Taryn and I aren't experts by any means, albeit with all our experience with family and friends, and also our own forms of, you know, our own struggles relating to it. But we wanted to facilitate it, facilitate these conversations and group chat environments with educated, experienced, and qualified healthcare professionals, such as Guy. Was our first point of contact with regards to addiction and recovery. And we chatted a lot about, at that stage, I think it was during the South Africa's strictest portion of lockdown, where I think cigarettes had been banned for quite a while, which for a lot of South Africans was a little bit ridiculous. At that point, I'd, against my will, given up smoking, and we spoke a bit about that, and also about childhood attachment insecurities and the consequences of that later on in adulthood. And that is when Guy happened to mention, because we spoke about online support systems and where the lockdown, how we could view it as opposed to the potential for relapse in the case of addiction, as an opportunity to focus on recovery. And Guy spoke about introspection, and then also mentioned online platforms such as this Vitality project run by the amazing Dr. Bob.
Thank you, Guy.
And while I was editing the video to put in really cool images and visuals to it, obviously needed to do some stalking of the Vitality project, and went onto the website. And the first thing that stood out for me was the real sort of, and this is where I feel perhaps in South Africa there could be a lot more of, if there isn't any of it, authenticity and this sort of this realness that comes from your content, and the video content in particular, where I felt that at that time, with regards to specifically substance addiction, in my case, as a family member who's always tried to support my loved ones by languaging things better, because I'm very reactive as opposed to trying to be proactive in supporting my loved ones, I was looking for support to rather, instead of ending my relationships with all my my loved ones, to try and better navigate that. And there was a lot of content, your video chats on there that just resonated with me in a way that I've never quite gotten, I haven't quite gotten into it that much with other support systems here before. And that's what stuck out for me initially. And then I reached out to you guys, and yeah, Dr. Bob and I had our interview, and the rest is just, you know, history. But I love, Taryn and I were chatting, and I think the one thing that's come out of lockdown, especially in South Africa, where we're quite desensitized, and to sort of being quite hardcore about stuff, and, you know, with all our history and complexities and everything, we've just got to, you know, there's other things to focus on, and, you know, just got to man up and deal with it. It's very hard to get real and be vulnerable about things. And I think the one thing that I have noticed, we're having a lot of conversations with friends and family members and colleagues now that we weren't before. And I'm in no way saying that this is a lot better, because it can always get better, but there's definitely a difference in people speaking a little bit more vulnerably, and it's becoming slightly more comfortable for us to be able to have conversations and open up about our own struggles with mental health and addiction, whether it be relating to us or family members. So that's been good to see. But it's at the same time, probably also with the increase in volume since lockdown in mental health and addiction cases, But I think that there's also a longing for getting educated from a more sort of real support network that doesn't come across as almost cult-ish. And that's something that's, yeah, I mean, I've belonged to a lot of support groups before, and it's sort of, I think the longest I've belonged to one is in a matter of 8 months. And then there's something that'll just piss me off because I feel like I'm obligated to belonging to this sort of ideological community. Subscribe to it's when someone starts using words like I think this, or this is how I want you to think. So this was the other how I've really enjoyed collaborating with all of you, is that it's one thing that we speak about quite a lot, and I've been really trying to practice is speaking openly and listening with an open heart, because it's something it's very hard to get wrong in the midst of a global pandemic when we're all angry and frustrated, and you know, a lot of us and others are relapsing left, right, and center and pissing each other off. Yes. So yeah, I think, I mean, I could ramble on about this for days. Taryn and I chatted about this for about an hour yesterday on the phone, but there are a lot of highlights that have come out of lockdown that could be aligned to the sort of the framework of, I think the lockdown experience could maybe be seen as almost a rehabilitation sort of sorts, and then coming out into the real world. And some people are kind of the struggle of adapting into the real world. What sort of support are you getting? Because we can't all be in treatment centers, you know, forever. We've got to find a way to adjust on our own accord. So it's, yeah, great to have a platform like the Vitality Group, the Vitality Project, as a way to access whenever you need and want, whether it be video content or a workshop. So yeah, we're very, I think, lucky to have connected with you guys. So thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Caira. Yeah, I'm really grateful to you, Guy, for so many things, including connecting us up. Caira, I just absolutely love the way you articulate yourself. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love the way your mind works. Really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. What was the phrase that you used, Caira? I didn't want to interrupt you. You said we can't always stay in. It was right after you gave that great analogy of this is like a rehab and we're getting out, and you can't always stay in.
Yeah, we can't always stay in treatment centers.
Treatment centers, that was it. That was it.
As great as they are, maybe as a foundation, or and it's also great to see. I know a lot of people who are, you know, voluntarily checking themselves in to places now post lockdown, because I think we've been confined in the safety of our homes and the four walls, and now they sort of press the button, we've sent out into the madness of the real world, and we've got to adapt to this. And now I don't know about America, but in South Africa, it's with these crazy new normal, and how are we supposed to adapt all this? So some of us who maybe haven't had support before are going crazy. Others maybe aren't. Others are dealing with it a lot better than they were before. But it's an interesting dynamic, and I think, yeah, the bottom for us, I think what we drew from this is that it's a great time to investigate online access to support and different frameworks of it. So figure out your ideal sort of communication for that and what works for you in terms of who you're getting advice from and support from.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Caira. I'd love to check in with Taryn as well, and the pièce de résistance will be Sir du Plessis. Taryn, I'd love to hear from you. It's our first time to have you on with us here, and I would love to just hear any thoughts you have. I think, Caira, you just knocked it out of the park, Caira. It's beautiful, all that you said, really powerful. But Taryn, please, I'd love to hear anything from you. Yeah.
So for me, I have a very different view on this, because I suffered terribly with depression and anxiety, and I have been told in the past that, you know, I'm an addict, and I've been through that process. And like Caira said, you know, for me, and what I said to you, like, I found people during this time that really spoke to me and that I could, like, just gain some perspective and inspiration from outside of these cult-like organizations, because that's how I felt when I was thrown into rehab and into AA and then into NA, and I didn't feel like anyone was listening to what I had to say. And then it was, you know, your meetings, and then you're done. And then what do you do? What do you do with yourself? How do you deal with all of the pain that's still there? And especially with a mental illness, like that is a daily struggle. And you know, you go into clinic for 21 days and then you come out, and then lockdown happened. And Caira reminded me that I actually had my breakdown right in the beginning of lockdown. Now I'm very chilled, and I'm kind of concerned. I'm waiting for it to peak and for me to crash again. But I had a complete meltdown with anxiety and, you know, like the isolation and everything. And I was like, well, who can I look to for help, and who point me in the direction? Like, I can't do this on my own. And I just spun in circles and circles and circles. And that's when, you know, Caira started this group, and we were able to have these honest chats. Because previously, I will say, if I did ever, maybe my platform of sharing was never correct, but previously when I do share, I have always been shut down that I am too dramatic and, you know, looking for attention or something like that. And now what I find interesting is people have become so expressive about what's going on that it's actually almost okay to be dramatic and expressive. And I'm sitting here going, sure, okay, so there wasn't actually anything wrong with me. I was just, you know, talking about how I was feeling and being honest about how I was feeling, and no one was actually ready to listen to it in the beginning. And now maybe they are. And like Caira and I said, it would be so great if we can just have a safe space to continue having these open conversations and allowing people to get the help, to gain anything from what potentially they might be looking for. Because, you know, a quick fix into a treatment center and then out, it just doesn't work. And I can say that, like, I can say that it doesn't work.
Yeah. Thank you, Taryn. To your point that, first of all, I'm sorry for the suffering, and join you in that. I appreciate very much you sharing that. And we want to create a safe space to be with the darkness, as well as whatever it takes to move through it. And I think it takes being with the darkness, right? I mean, you can't just somehow bypass that. You reminded when you talked about, I loved how you put it, amidst COVID, now it becomes appropriate to be dramatic. So you're no longer seen as dramatic, you're just seen as normal. Yeah. You remind me of a quote I heard. It's from the American comedian George Carlin. You might be familiar with it. I actually put it on a coffee cup of mine. So I look at it some mornings each week. And he says, those who dance are considered insane by those who can't hear the music. It's like you've been dancing for a long time, and finally people are hearing the fucking music, you know. Good, right? I really appreciate it. Another thought I had too, as I was reflecting this morning as I was swimming, my morning ritual, is that Jason and I have put together 2 monthly workshops. In July, our workshop was on the biology of addiction. I feel like it's really important and misunderstood even by people that go through recovery, much less their family members. And then the one that we just completed in August, which was just a week ago, was on the psychology of addiction, looking at shame and stigma. And I know Caira and I've talked a lot about that, and Guy talked a lot about that. But that at the very least, if you're going to be in recovery, you need to address not only the biological effects of addiction, which are huge, and recovery, but also the emotional, the psychological, the relational. And we're moving forward in September to going more deeply, I think, into the psychology, even more so in terms of what are some skills that we can build. Guy and I are talking about building skills of resilience. And, you know, you think about it, you go through 21 days. I think Caira has taught us the same thing. Guy has told us the same thing. In the U.S., it's 28 days. I don't know why there's a week difference. It must be something about the internet dateline or something. But you go through something like that. You know as well as I, Taryn, there's no flipping away that you're going to have a grip on any of the things that matter with that kind of just, you know, intensive immersion, and then you're on your own. And then you go into self-help groups of every stripe, many of which don't allow for crosstalk, so there's no dialogue. We're just basically talking in sequence, and I can just list the problems with that. My problem is that I was immersed in psychology as a psychologist for 30 years before I got addicted and went into recovery, and I couldn't just erase 30 years of practicing as a clinical psychologist when I got into support and realized these don't work for shit, and I can list the reasons why they don't work for shit. They do for some people, but there's a lot of people that don't. And I work with those people, and they relapse and die. That's not okay. That's not okay. So Jason and I have no intention for this to supplant treatment, but at least let's provide a forum that is very much in the spirit of what Caira's been doing and that we've been trying to do together. Let's provide a forum that expands on that which is available. We don't need to replace that, but we need to supplement that at the very least. People for whom AA and NA and refuge recovery and smart recovery work and are sufficient, that's fine. That's not who we're reaching out to. We're reaching out to the people that are left hungering for something more, whether it's a process that hosts vulnerability and or content that is not included in the curriculum of those organizations. I'll just get off my soapbox and breathe for a minute. Anyway, I feel really strongly about what you said, Taryn, and I'm so gratified. I was thinking as you were talking, if Caira, if you only touched one person's life in what you did with Lockdown Open Up, she's sitting right next to you on my screen right now. And that is so incredibly amazing. That's so cool. Really, that's well done. Well done. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Taryn. So grateful for you to be here. Thank you. Thank you. And Guy du Plessis, I'd love to hear anything you have to share, sir, dear friend.
Sure. Yeah, I was just thinking about the last part you were sharing about obviously there's many fellowships that's for people in NA, people in AA. Then there's moderate recovery and Buddhist recovery and all sorts of things. So I don't think there's a lack of fellowship at the moment, sort of worldwide, but there are still certain groups of people that don't quite fit into those fellowships as well. You know, they don't quite fit into the 12-step fellowship, and they're not Buddhist, so that's not going to mean much to them. And they're not, overly codependent and stuff like that. And a lot of these sort of alternative fellowships are very like codependency. I mean, in the codependent world, codependency is seen as a scientific fact. Now, in the scientific world, there's no such thing as codependency. It's not a medical term, nor do any psychiatrists really consider that as something that exists. But in the recovery world, it's a very well-established thing. Now, I think both of them are wrong and both of them are right. There's definitely a thing like codependency, but there's also definitely a thing like not codependency. You know, so I think there's a great need for broader fellowships. That's the reason why NA broke away from AA, is because the heroin addicts were getting bored of listening to all these fucking whiskey drinkers telling about how they used to drink and throw up, and they're like, really, I think we can come up with better war stories than this. You know what I mean? It's like, let's start our own meetings, and at least our meetings are going to be more fun, And that was NA. And then you had Euro Anonymous, who is very well known to be the snobbish addict, not because he's the best, but because he's the most fucked. So there's a certain veneration in, like, yeah, you just snort your coke, I injected in my jugular, You're just like a little, you're not even a real addict, you just like pop ecstasy. Come on, man, that's not even a drug, like, so that's why Euro Anonymous is very successful, because it speaks, the closer the language is for the community, and the closer the relation is, the more powerful the fellowship is. That's why I think like Recovery Anonymous, which I think could work to some extent, wouldn't work that well, because there you have an eating disorder, you know, cutting a wrist in the bathroom, and then you have a urine addict shooting up in the toilet, you know. And it's just, addiction is just such a holistic disease, and I use the word disease very lightly, but it's got so many manifestations. And then we are not even bringing in the process addictions, the sex addiction, the work addiction, the religion addiction, and what I like to call ideology addiction, which is the worst of them all, you know. So addiction has nearly lost its meaning unless you merely define it as a process where somebody is engaging in a behavior that is destructive for themselves and others, and the person has a loss of control. You know, Hitler wasn't an addict. Hitler was just a madman. I mean, he created a lot of destruction. Maybe he was an addict because he was also on a hell of a lot of methamphetamine, make no mistake. But you know, it's really my point. It's just that there's very broad fellowships, and I think if we can create something that speaks to a certain type of person, then that can be a good thing, even if it's only 10 other people, you know. And recovery has also changed. Recovery has changed a lot since I've come into recovery. You know, I've been in recovery for about 21 years now. And when I came into recovery, it was recovery. That was it. You know, like there was one or two guys that maybe did yoga, but they were considered like hippies, you know, and like a couple of dudes meditated and they were considered like new age freaks, you know. So from those days until now, like recovery, there are so many methodologies that's been incorporated into what we consider the recovery movement, you know, that recovery has become such a broad field with so many methodologies and practices. And I've always been interested in is how, you know, the 12-step stuff is like hammered down. We don't need to change that. You know what I mean? 12-step meetings is hammered down. There's nothing wrong with that, you know? It irritates me that people, they want to tweak everything. Yeah, but we should tweak this little word in the 12 steps because it offends me. It says his, and maybe God is oh, come on, man. Really, is that your biggest problem in your life, you know? So leave the 12 steps as it is. It works for a lot of people. Leave the meetings that it is. It works for a lot of people. Let's add to it. Let's not try and change what works, you know, and that is what annoys me. A lot of
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I think what I say, like, really, I mean, I don't for a second want to think that we're trying to steer away from, you know, supporting fellowship groups or, you know, any treatment centers, because it's the opposite. I mean, I myself belong to Al-Anon. Al-Anon literally, well, I don't know about saving my life, but yeah, I found myself in the doctor's room this time last year. But it was all to do with
powerful fellowship for those that need it. It's very powerful. Yeah,
but I do know that I know the conversation about people being annoyed with referring to God as the higher power, but it also states that you need to see that as just a tangible, you know, that's just there for referencing. Your higher power is your higher power. For me, it's my mom, or, you know, it's the universe, whatever it is. It's, you know, but that's really, as you say, it shouldn't be, you know, your biggest fundamental reason for what makes or breaks the connection you make with the fellowship. There's things that I take from different fellowships that really work for me, and I think having the ability to combine different support systems can work if you are open-minded about it.
And that's where I think. So that's where I think Dr. Bob has always. That's where the this whole brainchild with your Vitality Project has been. Is yes, I mean, AA meetings, NA meetings, Al-Anon meetings, whatever meetings you want to go to. and your higher power, but at the same time, you don't have somebody leading an AA meeting talking about dopamines and the effects that it has on the brain and the stressors and shame and stigma with the in-depth level that a Dr. Bob or a Guy can talk about it. And that's why we're saying, hey, the fellowship, the camaraderie, hang out with like-minded people that have like-minded goals. But at the same time, there is 30 years of brain scans and technology and things that have transpired that we can now add on and supplement AA and all these other fellowships to really, I guess, you know, I don't want to say take it up another level, but I guess just for lack of a better term, just add to it and be another, you know, additional resource.
It's an adjunct and a critique that a lot of people have against AA or NA is that, ooh, they don't talk about diet, ooh, they don't talk about blah, 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 they don't talk about this. Now, it is made explicitly clear in the NA book and the A book that this is not by the furthest stretch of the imagination to be considered a comprehensive guide to recovery. It is merely the 12 steps. And it says very clearly, there's a very clear passage in the AA book where it says, if you need a doctor, go to one. Don't go speak to a sponsor. Don't go and work the 7th step when you got a broken leg, you know? So NA and AA was never designed for those things. So in a way, it's not a valid critique, but in the same way, it's like NA can really do with a lot of that stuff. And also, we get caught in linguistics, you know? So people are like, is God, you know, here's her, should we use higher power, should we use God? Oh, it offends me when you use the word God, blah, blah, blah. But I've never seen a heroin addict sitting in a toilet and saying to his dealer, no, 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 I am not using your heroin because the way that you call your heroin offends me. I'm offended by the way that you say his heroin. I would prefer her heroin. So no, thank you. I will go cold turkey tonight. You know.
The other point you mentioned about that, leave the 12 steps alone. You know, don't mess with them. It works. And I remember Amy was saying, we chatted to Amy a while ago about her struggles with her rape case that she's dealing with, and we were talking about lockdown. And I said, how are you coping with lockdown on top of, you know, going through all these court cases with the rape case? And she said, you know, 12 steps has given her, she refers to the 12 steps a lot just for everyday life and resilience and perseverance and the tools that she's learned from her fellowship in AA and NA is, and I think that's also a parallel that we've drawn in lockdown. When it started, Taryn and I said, oh, we're so worried about the addicts and our loved ones and addicts and, you know, mental health. But actually, and this is not everyone, but there were a lot of people we know who coped far better using the skills from recovery that they had mastered from years and years of recovery, applying that to the resilience needed to things being out of your control in lockdown.
I used to work with addicts a lot in one-on-one, and I used to always think, geez, people are really screwed in the head. And then later on, I stopped working with addicts and I worked with normal people. And then I went, fuck me, I can't believe how screwed up people on the head. The addicts were like the sane ones, as far as I'm concerned. The only problem is they took a lot of drugs. But as far as their sanity goes, make no mistake, statistically, an addict has got a 10% higher IQ than the average population. And that's one of the reasons he takes drugs. And like I say to Bob, I'm not surprised that people take drugs. I'm surprised that not more people take drugs, because life is such a difficult thing. Life is so full of suffering and tragedy that why aren't more people getting high? You know, that's the question. Not why are people getting high?
So yeah, I think as well that apart from all of this, the other thing for me that maybe could be an extension of treatment centers and the fellowship groups is like almost like an extracurricular platform that takes or aligns itself to some of the support groups and practices on the realness and openness and the conversations that are, maybe it opens it in a more casual, relaxed, but educational and qualified way. But again, that's what I have really taken from the Vitality Project is people like Taryn and myself who love to talk about stuff that's for most people like bury their heads when Taryn and I talk about some of the stuff we, mental health and addiction. But for us, it's so normal because we've grown up with it. It's been around us. It's been in our families. It's been around our friends. And we just had enough of feeling like it's like, you need to go to jail if anyone in your family is an addict and you speak openly about it. Or if you're, you can openly admit that, yes, I smoke cigarettes, therefore I have an addiction. That's, it's in the dictionary. To have these conversations about addiction as if addiction is like having a speeding fine that you haven't paid for. Why is it such a, and that's what I was really grateful for with a platform like the Vitality Project, because now we don't have human interaction. We were isolated from people. And yeah, to just tap in and, join these online conversations. I know not everyone wasn't doing these.
Yeah, that's what Bob is doing really good and brilliantly is Vitality, not on how do we overcome our sickness project, because within the first couple of weeks you are as mad as a hatter, and your IQ within the first year it borders on being retarded, and that's a fact. When you take the IQ of addicts in their first year of recovery and alcoholics, they got a very low IQ. They seem clever because they have memory of things. And then their brain damage comes right very quickly after that. And within a year or two, they're back to normal. But the distinction which a lot of people make, and I see that in a lot of old timers, is that they make this huge distinction between my recovery, I'm still not quite sure what that means, and my life. It's like, here's my recovery, here's my life. So when exactly are you recovering, and when exactly are you living? Are you recovering when you eat, but when you swallow, you live? Are you recovering when you drop? Or do you stop recovering when you jog? Like,
so spot on.
It's in philosophy, it's called a false dilemma, is when people oppose two things opposed to each other that actually is not contradictory. So there is only two things. There's an addictive lifestyle and there's a recovery lifestyle. And it's the way you live your life. So none of these things that Dr. Bob does and all of these things should be in any way whatsoever seen as fringe or, ooh, I'm jogging with my recovery program. For fuck's sakes, you know what I mean? You're just jogging. That's all you're doing, and you're getting more healthy. It's not for your recovery. You're jogging for your life. It's get healthy. I mean, I understand the abstract notion of recovery and a recovery program, and don't get me wrong, I understand the abstraction of that, and that is very useful for the first couple of weeks, first couple of months. I might even say the first year or two or three. But the reality is, in time, there's a blur between recovery and life, and eventually that blur dissipates. And that is when I think you are living life. You're not in recovery no more. You're not in this anymore. You're just another guy living his life. And fortunately, you've had addiction behind you, which has given you some insight and wisdom into the world, more so than your average Jack. Yeah. Every.
So what you're
average.
So they're basically they're changing their choices, right? They're making choices to, instead of doing X, they're going to do Y, and the more you do Y, the more the habit forms. And
absolutely, yeah,
I do agree.
You choosing healthy and life-affirming, healthy options for your life instead of using destructive and life-denying actions for your life.
I like that. You're not jogging as part of recovery. You're just jogging to be healthy.
Yeah.
You're not hanging out with friends as part of recovery. You're hanging out with friends because you just like to be around people and, you know.
I made a distinction in the workshop that we had last weekend, Guy, and it's very much, I think, in sync. I'm laughing as you're talking because I feel so sorry for the truth of what you're saying, and you say it in a hilarious way. But I made a distinction between what I call phase 1 recovery, which is literally getting sober. Whatever the addiction is, if it's to a substance or to a behavior, it just means stop that shit so you can get your brain back again and your body back again. But the goal of life, I sometimes tease about this, the goal of my life isn't to have on my gravestone, well, that Bob Weathers sure was one sober dude. How sad would that be? How sad would that be? And so I introduced phase 2 recovery in our conversation last weekend with the goal of moving into that in the next couple of workshops. And it's an official distinction. But phase 2 would be when your brain and body are not on board. And like with you, whether that's 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, whatever that is that I pose the idea of advanced recovery, but that ends up becoming kind of an oxymoron because you could just as well say that what we're talking about is living your robustly with vitality and so on. And really at that point, you can just drop the terminology and just say, we're talking about living a resilient, healthful lifestyle. And that's what recovery from that in that first phase, that's what that points towards, is not to focusing on sobriety, focus on living a full life.
Otherwise, go back to drugs. Drugs isn't that bad. It is actually a shitload of fun. You're just gonna die, right? But you don't even know it when you die. So rather take drugs for 5 years and party, go mad, and have a blast, then sit sober and miserable and suicidal for the next 40 years, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean?
I fully agree.
That's just the slow form of suicide, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think it reminds me of a conversation in one of your workshops talked about where someone said, or maybe it was one of your video chats, I can't remember, it was something helpful, where, you know, they thought that once they'd, you know, gotten the hang of their addiction or recovery, and they'd managed to step away from the substance for a year or whatever it was, they thought everything would get easier. But it got so much harder, and they said, why does life seem so much harder now? I've gotten rid of the addiction and I'm trying to cope in a sober way. And it's I can't remember what the comment was, but it was something to the effect that it's literally life going, well, I'm here to remind you of like your actual problems that you need to deal with away from the addiction. So it's almost like the addiction is just a symptom
that's what
of the other problems.
Yeah. I mean, you know, one was also understand things within the historical context, like let's say reading the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever. You know, I mean, you don't really think there's an elephant that's blue with like 20 arms coming out of the side of his head. You know, I mean, one needs a bit of poetic license there. And the same way with the AA book. Bill W., those guys only wrote the book when they were a couple of years clean. Now, if I remember how insane I was, you know, in early recovery, imagine a load of crap I would have wrote if I had to write a big book. I mean, you know, so those guys were still pretty, like, out there when they wrote it. And I can bet you old Bill would have changed a couple of things before he died, you know. But there became a type of fundamentalism that the first word was divinely inspired. So you can't change divinely inspired text. But Bill, there's some very, very, very powerful claims in the big book that the fear of financial insecurity will leave you, the fear of this will leave you, and the fear of la 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 la, all that stuff. And I'm yet to meet the person that has happened to. In fact, the longer you stay clean, the more your fear of finances increases because you start making more money. You know, that's it. So I think old Bill and the boys would have watered down some of that and not made it sound so glorious. But then again, in Buddhism, there's a term. It's called a useful lie. It's when the monk goes to the teacher and says, "Teacher, if I meditate, will I become enlightened?" And he says, "Yes, you're going to be so enlightened. You'll walk on water. You'll fly you'll fly in the air, and you'll be amazing. And just do it for long." And he came back after 5 years, and the guy said, "Well, I'm still not walking on water." And then eventually came back after 20 years, and the teacher said, "No, sorry, I lied to you. But is your life better for meditating or not?" And the guy said, "Yes, my life is." So I said, "Well, in that case, that was a useful lie."
It's good. It's good. You guys, we have to wind down in just a second. I want to offer just a brief statement from anybody that wants to speak briefly. And I've got to scoot, so it's a hard stop for me, unfortunately. Caira, how about you? Any final comments from you?
Yeah, I just, again, because this is our, well, from the lockdown open up side of things, it's going to be our last collab. And yeah, I just can't thank all of you enough for this opportunity to have these very real and open conversations about stuff that, for me personally, as much as I started the group to try and help other people get real about stuff and open up, it's helped me a lot. And using my own experiences as sort of the basis of some of the content. It's Dr. Bob, you really have helped me understand a lot of things, particularly as a family member closely related to addiction and recovery. And yeah, I think just taking home from that is for me just the ability to, you can't learn enough about this stuff in order to strengthen the communication that we have with ourselves and loved ones about addiction and recovery and mental health. And I think, like we keep saying, we're all recovering from something in one way or another. And I get emotional, but Guy with your academic and abstract explanations and very qualified and experienced educational value that you've offered to the Lockdown Open Up group as well, and joining our platforms together. Thanks so much. I think looking forward to continuing the relationship going forward.
I would just like to offer the profound and wise words that I recommend more people in recovery listen to Porcupine Tree.
Thank you, Guy. Hey, how about you? Any final words from you?
From myself, I'm sorry, my comments are up on the screen. I can't see the rest of the screen here. It's messing with me. But no, I thought this was very productive. I think very useful information. Hopefully some people got some stuff out of it, and super excited to see what we can all put together here and where we take your Vitality project. But I think it's going to be amazing.
Thank you, Jason. Taryn, you're back again. I'm so sorry. My screen has happened earlier with Guy. Taryn, we can't hear you. We'll have to have you on mute. Sorry.
My internet.
I'm so glad you came back. I wanted you to have a final word, and then we'll wind up for today.
Oh, I just thank you so much for having me. And as always, I love taking away from what all of you have to say. So I appreciate it.
This is just the beginning of the next chapter, you guys. Guy, thank you so much for connecting me with Caira. Caira, thank you for connecting me with Taryn. Jason and I are in this for the long haul, and we're going to be working with all three of you guys. So blessings to you in South Africa. Good evening to you, okay? Stay safe and be well, and we'll connect up again. Much love. Guys, be well. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Where do you put it off?